Welcome to The Critique. Today, we're breaking down a monologue called Oprah is Lying to You. It's a fiery take on her weight loss special, basically arguing it's all down to calories and personal accountability, not some obesity gene.
Yeah, let's just get straight to the feedback. This piece it's got incredible energy. You feel it.
Oh, absolutely. The passion is just radiating off the page.
But when you strip away that emotion and really look at the logical architecture, there's a pretty big vulnerability right at the start. It's in how the author deals with the science.
Exactly. So a key theme is this absolute rejection of the obesity gene. The author says, quote, "That's all nonsense," and that the gene doesn't exist.
Right. And that brings us to our first major critique. The absolute denial of any genetic factors creates a really brittle logical foundation that, frankly, weakens the whole argument about accountability.
I see what the author's going for. They want to shut down excuses. They want to say, no, it's you. It's not your DNA.
Of course, but the weakness is that by making it so absolute,
So binary. It doesn't exist, full stop.
you're opening yourself up to an immediate and very easy rebuttal.
It's a huge strategic risk. I mean, if anyone listening knows anything about metabolic variances or hunger hormones like ghrelin and leptin,
Which are pretty mainstream concepts now.
they might just dismiss the author's valid point about thermodynamics because the premise just sounds anti-science. You lose their trust right away.
It feels like the author thinks that if they admit biology plays any role, they somehow lose the argument about responsibility.
But that's a false choice, isn't it?
It is. And the irony is, the author actually contradicts themselves later in the script. I noticed a line deep in the monologue where they admit the rate at which you get fatter will differ slightly person to person.
Right. So they know it. They know biology plays a role, but the hook at the beginning just denies it. So let's talk suggestions. The idea here is to add some nuance, to distinguish between predisposition and destiny.
Exactly. You can acknowledge that genetics might change the difficulty setting of weight loss, but still argue that physics is the mechanic of how it works.
It's like playing a video game on easy versus hard mode.
Yes, the rules are the same. You still have to make the jump, but it's just harder for some player. That's a much stronger position. It inoculates the argument.
Okay, so let's give some concrete examples of how to rewrite this.
Instead of saying there is no such gene, which is, factually debatable, try something like genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger.
I like that. It acknowledges the biological reality Oprah is talking about, that food noise idea, without giving up the moral high ground.
Right. It frames the surrender to the noise as the issue, rather than pretending the noise doesn't exist.
Another concrete change. Take that admission from later in the text and move it right up front. Say something like, your genetics might determine how hungry you feel, but they cannot break the laws of physics.
That is a bulletproof argument. The current version, claiming the gene is a total myth, is a glass argument. One scientific paper and it shatters. This new version makes the author sound smarter, more reasonable, and it makes the tough love message land that much harder.
Okay, let's move to the second critique. It's connected to this food noise idea and the part about GLP-1s, Ozempic.
Yes. This section is fascinating. The way the author analyzes how the drugs work, it inadvertently ends up supporting Oprah's premise instead of dismantling. It creates this confusion between mechanism and morality.
So the author's argument is that Oprah is lying about food noise being this irresistible force.
Right, but then they describe how the drug works by saying, it's just making it so you're not hungry.
Ah, and that's the logical loop. You see the trap there?
Exactly. If the drug works by quieting hunger, the author is implicitly admitting that the hunger, the noise, was the driver of the problem in the first place.
I see. So by focusing on the result, which is eating less, they miss the chance to attack the method, drug versus discipline. The author is basically saying the drug is cheating because it stops the hunger, which just confirms that hunger is the antagonist here.
Yes, the author gets trapped in a debate about biology when they want to be having a debate about character. Oprah can just say, exactly, that's why I needed it. I was too hungry. And she wins that exchange because you validated her entire premise.
Okay, so the suggestion here is to reframe it, to accept that the noise is real, but to argue that the real virtue is in ignoring that noise without pharmaceutical help.
Yes, shift the focus. Right now, the script is stuck on obesity causes overeating versus overeating causes obesity. It's circular. Instead, the argument should be that overcoming the urge to overeat is the definition of character.
So let's get concrete. Instead of dismissing the drug's mechanism, the author could say something like, Ozempic artificially simulates the self-control you are refusing to build for yourself.
That is sharp. That sting. It accepts the drug works, but it attacks the soul of the user, which is totally in line with the author's voice.
It stops arguing about whether the hunger is real and starts arguing about whether you should be able to handle it.
Another example is using that school analogy from elsewhere in the text. Taking the drug is like getting someone else to do your homework. You still get the A, you're skinny, but you didn't learn the lesson, which is discipline.
That aligns perfectly with the author's points about courage. It moves the critique from, you aren't really hungry, to, you are hungry, and your refusal to deal with that hunger is cowardice.
That's a much harder argument to deflect. It clarifies the definition of willpower. Willpower isn't not being hungry. It's being hungry and choosing not to eat.
That distinction is crucial. Okay, so that brings us to our third critique. Let's look at the moral dimension, especially when the author talks about older celebrities. There are some contradictions in this sin versus pointless argument.
This was the most jarring part of the piece for me. The author frames overeating as a serious moral failing. They use words like gluttony and sloth, which are sins, and call for intellectual courage.
Right. The stakes are really high. We're talking about the salvation of the self.
But then the author pivots and mocks older people, specifically John Goodman, for getting skinny at 67. The line is, it's the most pointless thing in the world.
That sends a profoundly mixed message.
It really does. So is obesity a moral failing that has to be corrected for the sake of your soul? Or is it just a cosmetic issue that stops mattering when you're too old to be considered attractive?
That's a critical distinction. If it's a sin, you don't just stop repenting because you hit 70.
Exactly. You wouldn't say, oh, stop trying to be an honest person. You're 70, it's pointless now. If gluttony is a sin, then John Goodman losing weight is an act of redemption. The author calling it pointless accidentally admits their real concern might not be sin or health, but just vanity.
And that completely undermines the whole accountability ethos. If the listener thinks the author is just being vain, the moral funder of the gluttony argument just disappears.
Right. So the suggestion is to resolve this tension, you have to pick a lane. If you want to stick with the gluttony is a sin frame, which is powerful and clearly where the author's heart is, then stopping that sin at age 67 is a good thing. It's never too late to be virtuous.
Okay, concrete ways to fix it. I think the author has to completely remove that section suggesting John Goodman should just write it out.
I agree. It directly conflicts with the call for intellectual courage. Why is it courageous to lose weight at 30, but pointless at 70? It just alienates any listener over 50.
Instead, the critique of older celebrities should be about how they're doing it. If they're using drugs, criticize the lack of effort, not their age. That keeps the method versus morality theme consistent.
Precisely. And there's another line. Everyone's getting skinny now at the age when I'm planning to become a blimp. It's a funny line. It has personality.
But it does risk undercutting the seriousness of the message, doesn't it? It makes the author sound like they plan to commit the sin of gluttony later. It feels a little hypocritical. Do as I say, not as I plan to do.
So to fix it, frame that self-deprecation more clearly as a joke, or even better, contrast it. Say something like, I might want to be a blimp when I'm 70, but I'd know that would be a failing on my part too. You have to hold yourself to the same moral standard.
Okay, moving to our final critique. This is about rhetorical tools. The piece is full of analogies, the matrix, falling off a building, a fist punch.
It's a bit of an analogy avalanche. The energy is great, but the precision gets a little lost. It feels like the author is just throwing every metaphor they can think of at the wall.
The topic sentence here is that the analogies about causality are vivid, but they really need to be tightened up to expose the circular logic they're critiquing.
Let's look at that fist analogy. The line is, a fist didn't hit your face because I punched you. I punched you because a fist hit your face.
I tripped over that when I read it. Had to read it twice.
It's convoluted. The listener has to pause to untangle the sentence. Wait, the fist, the punch, and in audio, once they pause to think about grammar, you've lost their attention. The momentum is gone.
Right. The weakness is that it puts cognitive load on the listener just to understand the metaphor, not the point the metaphor is making. And the falling off a building one is right next to it. Stacking them dilutes their power.
One strong analogy is always better than 3 okay ones. So the suggestion is just to streamline, focus purely on effect climbing to be cause, and stick to the most relatable one.
And the school assignment analogy is by far the strongest one in the text.
I didn't get a 0 because I failed to turn it in. I failed to turn it in because I got a 0.
That is crystal clear. Everyone gets that instantly. It's an aha moment.
So for a concrete example, cut the punch analogy entirely. Expand on the schoolwork.
Or, and I like this idea, connect it back to the food examples from earlier.
Oh, like the Cinnabons.
Exact. Saying obesity causes overeating is like saying the empty Cinnabon box caused you to eat the Cinnabon. It keeps the imagery consistent. It's visceral.
That's much tighter. And what about the Matrix reference? Oprah's like Neo bending over backwards?
It's a good visual, but bending over backwards is a cliche. Since you're already referencing Neo, go all the way. Instead of that, say she's dodging the bullets of reality.
I love that. It completes the metaphor. It implies she's actively avoiding a truth that's coming right at her.
It turns a scattered shotgun blast of images into a single sniper shot. And that's what this piece needs. The passion is there. The voice is there. It just needs to, well, trim the fat from the argumentation to make it undeniable.
Let's just zoom out for a second. Is there a risk that by focusing on these logical gaps, we're missing the emotional appeal? The author is clearly tapping into a real frustration people feel.
That's a fair point. The emotional core, stop making excuses, is the strongest part. It's the engine. But that's exactly why the logical gaps are so dangerous. The people who already agree with the author, the choir, they'll love this no matter what.
But the goal is to persuade the person on the fence.
Exact. The person who feels guilty about their weight, but also read an article about genetics last week. That person hears the gene doesn't exist and thinks, well, this guy is just ignorant, and boom, you've lost them.
So by shoring up the science and fixing the moral consistency, the author stops preaching to the choir and actually starts dismantling the opposing argument.
It transforms the piece from a rant into a rebuttal.
And a rant feels good to say. A rebuttal changes minds. So, to wrap this up, this piece is high energy, entertaining, and bold, but it suffers from those brittle, logical absolutes on genetics, that contradiction about weight loss in the elderly, and a missed chance to frame the biological mechanism of hunger correctly.
It has a strong heart, but a few loose screws in the chassis. We just need to tighten them up so the wheels don't fall off.
To recap the actionable suggestions for the listener. Number 1, admit genetics exist, but frame them as obstacles, not excuses. Use that loaded gun metaphor.
Number 2, align the gluttony as a sin argument with the weight loss at 70 argument. Be consistent. If it's a sin, it's always a sin. Pick one and stick with it.
And number 3, streamline your analogies. Use the schoolwork or Cinnabon analogy as your primary tool for circular logic and cut the confusing ones.
Simple fixes that will make the argument vastly more persuasive. It moves the script from a B- rant to an A+ argument.
That's all for this critique. We'd love to see how you incorporate this feedback. Please refine the script and submit the next iteration for review. We look forward to seeing it.
Keep writing.
Thanks for listening.